I work on defense and security questions, but mainly the questions of what do new technologies do to warfare, but also to society more broadly. What do new technologies mean for Europe?
So we've just come from what I thought was a really interesting breakfast conversation with some people who have a lot of experience of public policy and important decisions in this country. And you, I thought, amazingly well set the framework for this discussion, led us into lots of places these people didn't necessarily know they were going to be going to.
I think you touched upon one of the most important points, namely that AI really does touch upon almost every aspect of life, and this is what makes this so hard. And I see this a lot when talking to governments, because they don't necessarily know where to put this. Is this a question for the economics ministry? Is it a labor market question? Is it a security and defense question? Like, where do we practically put this? And I think there is a tendency or an effort to try and compartmentalize, which is understandable because you need to break it down to work on it. But that being said, honestly, I think the most important thing really is to have a conversation between different actors and to make sure that, we are not going one way with regard to AI in economics or, with regard to AI in the labor market, but another way with regard to AI in the military and AI ethics. All of this needs to be part of the same conversation. And for me, this really is the biggest challenge, because it means that you need to get all stakeholders around the table more or less all the time. So that really is the main thing we need to focus on. Maybe I wouldn't go quite so far, but yes, I think you're right. You are describing these echo chambers, or just these kind of professional areas where you meet with a lot of people who think like you and who speak the same language as you do. And this is the best way to kind of overlook very important things you don't even think about because no one raises it. And so I don't know about physical relocation, but I think the point really is that we do need different stakeholders to talk to each other. And as I said in the discussion this morning, there are a lot of social issues or social problems being caused by these new technologies, and we can't find solely technical solutions to these social problems. And so we can't just leave these issues to the engineers or the computer scientists. We do need other voices in there. And so again, I think the one of the answers really is conversation and more collaboration. In defense, what I've been observing is that there are at least broadly speaking, two debates going on in parallel. And one is the kind of political and public side of things that I would say tends to see artificial intelligence in the military, in the defense realm rather critically. There's a lot of talk about killer robots and that kind of narrative. And then there's the other side, where I would put the military and the industry. And here, of course, the focus is very much on how do we use these new technologies to our advantage, and how do we fight against opponents who use these new technologies. And so here again, what I've been trying to do also in my work is to make sure that these two groups talk to each other so that they understand what the concerns are. Because quite often, the military and industry may not even understand some of the ethical concerns that the other side have, which are very legitimate and which need to be addressed. And then again, the kind of public side may not understand the fears and concern that the military and industry side have. So I think we have a slow improvement of the situation when it comes to conversation. So let's say a year or a year and a half, 2 years ago, I felt that these debates were really bifurcated. They're like really independent of each other. I think there's more discussion now, a greater acceptance that the others do have important points, but this definitely is the challenge, and we need to all work on bringing people together and to make sure that all of this is taken into account. At the moment, we have in Europe, for instance, an enormous talk about European sovereignty and European digital or technology sovereignty. And here the focus really is to say, this isn't really a race against someone else, but we want to be able to do certain things independently of others. We want to do things on our own. And this does create a certain conflictual dynamic. I wouldn't quite go so far that this is a race, but this is really this kind of tension that we're currently facing, and I don't think that this is something we can just solve between the two of us really. But politicians in particular, I'd say, need to understand that yes, of course, it is their job to make sure that their populations, their constituents are doing well, but at the same time they need to take into consideration that it may be better for the development of the technology and the good for all people if there is more cooperation, more open source cooperation internationally. So this is really just a kind of thin line that everyone needs to walk. I think the big thing for Europe is to try and turn certain characteristics that Europe has, not see them as disadvantages, but rather turn them into advantages. And most importantly, I'm thinking here about privacy and privacy rules, which is something that's valued rather highly within Europe, and there are certain rules and regulation already in place that secure data privacy for European citizens. But there is a flip side to that, which means that it also is harder for companies, for states, etc., to gather, to collect data within the European Union. And quite often this is described as a trade-off. So either you have great data privacy, or you have great, AI fed by big data, but you can't have both. And there's some truth to that at the moment, because current AI does operate on the basis of big data. But that being said, what I advocate for is to say, let's definitely try and keep this focus on data privacy while making AI happen, for instance, by focusing on small data AI, so AI that doesn't need as much data as a lot of the current systems do. Let's try to keep this conviction that data privacy is important and turn it into an advantage, especially because now more and more people around the world are realizing that privacy is actually important, and that maybe we've been giving away our data without much thought, and that's actually not the way to go. So maybe we can actually benefit from this tech backlash.